It begins as a pressure behind the eyes, a weight that isn't quite physical but possesses a gravity all its own. You are standing in a room you have occupied 1,000 times, surrounded by the mundane architecture of your daily life, and yet the air suddenly feels thick with an uninvited significance. The light hitting the floorboards seems to be tracing a pattern you should recognize, a geometry of shadow and dust that points toward a specific afternoon you cannot name. There is a vibration in the chest, a quiet humming of the nervous system that insists something is missing from the record. It is like looking at a word written in a language you used to speak fluently, but haven't heard in decades. The shapes are there, the curves, the sharp descents of the ink, but the sound they make in the mind is a muffled echo. You reach for it, and the reaching itself pushes it further away, like a shadow that retreats the moment you turn your head to face it directly. The silence of the house becomes loud, expectant, waiting for you to find the key. The hallway stretches out before you, not as a physical space, but as a corridor of potentiality, where every door is slightly ajar, leaking a light that feels familiar but provides no illumination. There is a specific quality to the silence here, a density that suggests the presence of a thought just around the corner. You walk through the house, touching the surfaces of tables and the edges of door frames, hoping the tactile reality of wood and paint will trigger the collapse of this internal distance. It is the sensation of a name resting on the tip of the tongue, a phantom limb of the intellect that twitches with the memory of movement but finds no grip on the world. You find yourself staring at a mundane object, a chipped ceramic mug or a stack of mail, and for a split second, the veil thins. The object vibrates with a borrowed importance, a resonance that doesn't belong to its function, but to a moment it witnessed long ago. Then the alignment shifts, the resonance fades, and you are left only with the hollow ache of a recognition that refused to fully crystallize. There is a particular scent that drifts in through an open window, a mixture of damp pavement and wood smoke that hits the olfactory bulb with the force of a physical collision. It doesn't bring a picture, only a feeling, a sudden sharp contraction of the heart that says this happened before. You are transported to a place that has no coordinates, a season that has no year. The temperature of the air seems to drop, or perhaps it's just a sudden awareness of your own skin. You stand frozen, breath held, trying to let the scent act as a tether, pulling the submerged wreckage of the memory to the surface. But the wind shifts, the scent dissipates into the neutral smell of the room, and the connection snaps. You are left standing in the present, feeling like an interloper in your own life, haunted by the ghost of a Tuesday you can't describe. The frustration is quiet but systemic, a low-grade fever of the mind that won't break. You know that you know, but the knowing is a locked room with the key buried somewhere in the foundation of your own identity. The light at 4 in the afternoon has a way of turning the ordinary into a stage set for a play you've forgotten the lines to. It strikes the wall at an oblique angle, highlighting the minute imperfections in the plaster, the tiny cracks and bumps that usually go unnoticed. In this specific amber glow, the texture of the wall becomes a map of a landscape you once navigated. You find yourself tracing the patterns with your eyes, convinced that if you follow the lines long enough, they will lead you back to the source of this sudden, crushing nostalgia. It is a nostalgia for something you cannot identify, a longing for a person or a place that might not even exist anymore. The dust motes dancing in the light seem to be performing a coded message, a slow-motion ballet of forgotten details. You want to scream at the air to just give it up, to release the image that is currently pressing against the back of your skull. Instead, you stay silent, watching the light slowly retreat across the floor, taking the possibility of recall with it into the shadows of the evening. Sound is often the cruelest architect of this half-built world. It's the distant drone of a lawnmower 3 streets over, or the specific rhythm of a neighbor's footsteps on the stairs that sets the gears in motion. The sound creates a hollow space in the mind, a mold that is exactly the shape of a memory, yet remains empty. You listen with an intensity that borders on the pathological, trying to find the missing frequency that will make the internal image snap into focus. It feels like tuning an old radio, moving the dial through oceans of static, hearing a voice for a fraction of a second before it vanishes back into the white noise. The voice sounded like someone you loved, or perhaps it was your own voice from a decade ago, speaking a truth that has since become a lie. The effort of listening creates a tension in the jaw, a tightness in the throat. You are waiting for a resolution that never comes, a final note to complete the melody, but the sound just trails off into the mundane environment, leaving you stranded in the silence. The texture of a fabric can be a trap. Your fingers brush against the rough wool of an old coat hanging in the back of the closet, and suddenly the physical world feels thin, like paper. The sensation of the fibers against your skin evokes a cold morning, a bus stop, the taste of metallic coffee, and the feeling of waiting for something that felt life-altering. But which morning? Which city? The details are blurred, as if the memory has been left out in the rain until the ink ran and the colors bled into a gray smudge. You pull the coat closer, seeking the weight of the past, but it's just a garment, indifferent to your search. The tension grows in the gap between the physical sensation and the mental absence. You are an archaeologist of your own life, brushing away the dirt of the present to find only more dirt, more layers of unspecific time. The feeling is one of profound displacement, as if you have accidentally stepped into someone else's dream and are now being asked to provide the ending to a story you never started. There is a mirror in the hallway that catches the light from the kitchen, and for a moment, your own reflection looks like a stranger, someone who knows the secret you are chasing. You look into your own eyes, searching for a flicker of recognition, a sign that the data is still stored somewhere behind the iris. The face staring back is familiar, yes, but it feels like a mask, a surface-level representation of a person who is currently preoccupied with a much deeper, more urgent task. You wonder if the memory is hidden in the parts of yourself you can't see, in the subconscious rhythms of your heart, or the way your muscles hold tension. The house feels like it's holding its breath, as if the walls themselves are aware of your struggle and are choosing to remain silent. You turn away from the reflection, but the feeling of being watched by your own forgotten history persists. It's a claustrophobic sensation, being trapped inside a mind that is currently experiencing a technical failure, a localized blackout in the grid of your personal narrative. You find yourself walking toward the window, driven by a sudden, inexplicable need to see the street. The view is unremarkable. Cars parked in a line, a tree losing its leaves, a cat sitting on a fence, but you are convinced that the missing piece is out there, hidden in plain sight. It is the feeling of being on the verge of a massive epiphany, the kind that reorders the entire universe, only to have it dissolve into the realization that you were just thinking about a phone number or a grocery list. Except, this is deeper. This is the structural integrity of your past being called into question. If you can't remember this one thing, this one specific feeling that is currently vibrating through your bones, what else have you lost? The uncertainty is a slow poison, an erosion of the ground you stand on. You watch a person walk by on the sidewalk, and for a second, their gait, the way they hunch their shoulders against the wind, triggers a violent surge of familiarity. You almost call out, but you don't know the name, and by the time the thought forms, they are gone. The kitchen is filled with the hum of the refrigerator, a steady, low-frequency drone that anchors the room in the present. You are standing by the counter, a glass of water in your hand, and you realize you have been staring at the sink for 5 minutes without blinking. Your mind is a vast, dark library where someone has rearranged all the books and removed the labels. You are looking for a specific volume, a thin book with a blue spine, but every time you reach for a shelf, the shelves move. The frustration is becoming a physical ache, a knot in the solar plexus that won't undo itself. You try to approach the memory sideways, thinking about unrelated things, hoping to catch it off guard. But it is too clever for that. It knows you are looking. It enjoys the chase. The water in the glass is cold against your palm, a sharp reminder of the physical world. But your consciousness is elsewhere, wandering the perimeter of a forgotten event, looking for an entrance that has been bricked over. Sometimes it's a flash of color, a specific shade of ochre on a passing truck, or the way the blue of the sky deepens just before twilight. That color becomes a portal, but the portal is too small for you to fit through. You can only peer into the darkness on the other side, seeing the outlines of shapes that might be furniture, might be trees, might be the faces of people you once spoke to every day. The tension in this state is a form of exquisite torture, a suspension between the known and the unknown. You feel like a ghost in your own home, unable to interact with the objects of your past because you no longer possess the coordinates of their meaning. The color fades as the light changes and the portal closes, leaving you with nothing but the lingering sense of a profound loss. You haven't just forgotten a fact. You have forgotten a part of the way you used to feel, a specific emotional frequency that you may never be able to tune into again. The blue of the sky is just blue now, cold and indifferent. Evening arrives, and the shadows in the corners of the room begin to pool together, creating deep pockets of obscurity. You sit in the dark, refusing to turn on the lamp, letting the environment match the state of your mind. The feeling of almost remembering is now a presence in the room, a third party sitting in the empty chair across from you. It has no face, no voice, but it possesses a heavy, suffocating reality. You try to negotiate with it, offering up other memories in exchange for the one it's hiding. You remember the smell of your first school, the way the air felt before a summer storm, the sound of a specific door closing, but it's not enough. The phantom memory remains hidden, a stubborn knot in the fabric of time. The darkness outside the window is total now, and you are left with the rhythmic sound of your own breathing, which seems to be counting down to a revelation that never arrives. The anticipation is a stagnant pool, a place where nothing moves and nothing grows, just a quiet accumulation of unanswered questions. The sensation shifts from a search to a haunting. You aren't looking for the memory anymore. It is looking for you. It brushes against your shoulder in the hallway. It whispers in the sound of the wind through the eaves. It is a persistent, nagging itch in the psyche that cannot be scratched. You begin to doubt the reality of the feeling itself. Is it possible to remember something that never happened? Is this just a glitch in the biological hardware? A feedback loop of recognition triggered by a random set of sensory inputs? The thought is even more unsettling than the loss of the memory. If the feeling of familiarity can be faked by the brain, then nothing is certain. Every connection, every sense of home, every shared history could be an illusion, a trick played by a nervous system trying to find patterns in the chaos. You grip the edge of the table, feeling the solid reality of the wood, trying to ground yourself in the now, but the ground feels like it's made of liquid, shifting and flowing beneath your feet. Sleep offers no refuge, only a different kind of searching. In the liminal space between waking and dreaming, the memory almost takes shape. You see a doorway, a hand turning a brass knob, the hem of a yellow dress. You hear a fragment of a sentence. It was never meant to be. And then the dream dissolves into the logic of the subconscious. You wake up with the taste of copper in your mouth and the absolute certainty that you had it. You finally had it. And then you let it slip through your fingers like sand. The morning light is harsh and unforgiving, exposing the clutter of the room and the exhaustion in your limbs. The feeling of the almost memory is now a dull throb, a psychological bruise that hurts whenever you move a certain way. You go through the motions of the day, but you are only half present. The other half of you still back in that half-dreamed hallway, staring at the brass knob, waiting for the door to open. The city outside is a cacophony of triggers. Every street corner, every neon sign, every snatch of conversation from a passerby is a potential key to the lock. You walk for hours, letting the environment wash over you, hoping for an accidental collision with the truth. The urban landscape is a palimpsest of your own history, layers of experiences built one on top of the other. But the one you need is at the very bottom, buried under the weight of 1,000 commutes and 1,000,000 unremarkable errands. You see a reflection in a shop window, a distorted version of yourself against a backdrop of mannequins, and the image feels like a clue. The mannequins are frozen in poses of casual elegance, their blank faces suggesting a piece that you currently lack. They don't have memories to lose. They are purely of the moment. You envy their lack of history, their freedom from the burden of the almost known. The tension in your shoulders has become a permanent feature of your posture, a physical manifestation of the mental stalemate. You find yourself in a bookstore, standing in the aisles of the history section, surrounded by the recorded memories of the entire human race. All these dates, names, and battles, preserved in ink and paper, yet your own personal history is failing you. The irony is a bitter pill. You open a book at random and read a sentence about a forgotten king in a distant land. And for a moment, the king's name resonates with the same frequency as the thing you've lost. Is it possible that what you're looking for isn't yours? Could it be a collective memory, a fragment of a story that belongs to everyone and no one? The boundary between the self and the world begins to feel porous. The feeling of almost remembering might be a symptom of being alive, a side effect of a consciousness that is constantly trying to bridge the gap between the infinite and the specific. You put the book back on the shelf, the king's name already fading, leaving you once again with a heavy, unnameable pressure in your chest. Rain begins to fall, a gray curtain that blurs the edges of the world. The sound of the droplets hitting the pavement is a rhythmic, hypnotic white noise that should be soothing, but instead, it feels like a countdown. You stand under an awning, watching the water rush into the storm drains, carrying away the debris of the street. You feel like that debris, small, insignificant, and being pulled toward an inevitable disappearance. The memory you are chasing feels like the only thing that can save you, the only thing that can anchor you to a version of yourself that made sense. Without it, you are just a collection of habits and reactions, a ghost inhabiting a biological machine. The rain turns the world into a series of reflections, every surface a mirror of the gray sky. You look down at a puddle and see your own face, distorted by the ripples, and for a second, you don't recognize yourself at all. The disconnection is complete. You are a stranger in a strange land, and the only person who can vouch for you is the one you can't remember. The evening light in the library is dim, the green lamps casting long, distorted shadows across the wooden tables. You are surrounded by the smell of old paper and dust, a scent that is the very definition of the past. You sit with your head in your hands, eyes closed, trying to force the memory out of its hiding place. You try to reconstruct the days leading up to the feeling, building a timeline of the mundane in the hopes that the extraordinary will reveal itself in the gaps. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The names of the days feel like empty vessels. You remember what you ate, what you wore, what the weather was like. But the emotional core is missing. It's like looking at a photograph where the central figure has been cut out with a pair of scissors. You can see the background, the trees, the car, the house, but there is a jagged white hole where the meaning should be. The more you stare at the hole, the larger it becomes, until it threatens to swallow the rest of the picture. The walk home is a journey through a landscape of echoes. The sound of your own footsteps on the sidewalk seems to be coming from someone else, someone walking just a few paces behind you. Every time you turn to look, there is no one there. Only the empty street and the flickering orange glow of the sodium lamps. The feeling of being followed by your own absence is a peculiar kind of dread. It's not the fear of something happening, but the fear of something not happening. The fear that the resolution will never come, that you will spend the rest of your life in this state of permanent, agonizing anticipation. You reach your front door and hesitate, the key in your hand feeling like a foreign object. Inside, the house is waiting for you, filled with the shadows of the things you've forgotten. You enter and close the door, the click of the lock sounding like a finality, a sealing of the tomb. You sit in the living room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, casting a barred shadow of the blinds across the far wall. The silence is no longer expectant. It is indifferent. The feeling of almost remembering has settled into a dull, permanent ache. A part of your landscape like a mountain you've learned to stop looking at. You realize that you may never know. The image may never snap into focus. The name may never cross your lips. This state of suspension might be the destination, not the journey. You are a traveler who has arrived at a border that cannot be crossed, staring at the lights of a city on the other side that you can never enter. The realization doesn't bring peace, only a quiet, hollow acceptance. You watch the shadow of the blinds shift as a car passes by, the movement slow and deliberate, a silent clock ticking away the seconds of a life defined by what is missing. The night deepens, and the temperature in the room drops, but you don't reach for a blanket. You stay still, a monument to the unremembered. There is a faint sound, a scratching at the edge of your perception, perhaps a mouse in the walls, or the house settling, or the sound of your own blood rushing through your ears. It feels like a whisper, a final attempt by the memory to break through the barrier. You don't strain to hear it this time. You let the sound exist without trying to translate it. The tension is still there, a thin wire stretched to the breaking point, but you have stopped trying to cut it. You simply exist in the vibration. The world outside is asleep, and you are awake in the dark, a person shaped by a secret they don't know, a story with a missing middle, a song that ends on a dissonant chord. The dark is total now, and the memory is a cold, silent weight in the center of your being, nameless and absolute.